Well, I'll just let the synthesizer play itself to itself because I've programmed a tune it a bit easier than programming the computer. And what's on my landing? Well, nothing's landing at the moment. There's a cylinder head off a Peugeot 107, a Peugeot 107 crankshaft, Peugeot 107 camshaft, anything else? Bearings, timing chain. Oh, that's off a bike, push bike. Doorbell that's unplugged so nobody can ring it at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. Peugeot 107 speedo. Piston broke. No, it's okay. Is that actually just wants re-ringing? Oh yeah, rev counter. Oh yeah, off Peugeot 107 of course. Yeah, RC1 or Ego, they'll all fit. They're all basically the same car. The C1, and they were a bit cheaper, but didn't even have electric. They had nothing on them really, and didn't have electric windows or much at all. And the Ego wasn't. What's the difference between the Ego and the rest of them? Weren't they about £2,000 more? Why? They're no different really. I always thought the 107 was the best deal, and when I bought my first one, they said at the garage it wasn't actually flannel or hype. They were selling. You saw loads of 107s. They were very popular very quickly, and you didn't see many C1s or Egos at that time. But obviously most of the parts are interchangeable. Yeah, the C1 hasn't even got electric power steering, which is a brilliant idea actually, because the trouble with hydraulic power steering is you can't switch the pump off and the engine's driving it all the time. And you only need power steering when you're going slowly, when the tyres are in contact with the road for a longer period, and it actually makes the steering heavier. You don't need it on a motorway, you definitely don't need it, because if you catch the steering wheel a bit, it'll flick to it violently. Flick the steering violently, yeah, you don't want that. But it should be set up so that once you get to a certain speed, it just shuts down altogether. But with a 107, it's electric, so it only draws power when it needs it. So you need a bigger alternator, but that's the thing, it doesn't use anywhere near as much petrol as hydraulic power steering. And I've said all that before, but yeah, I just watched part of a video about race preparing a 107. Oh, yes, they do that, or they used to. Yeah, it's a job and a half, because as with any modern car, there are millions of parts on them, which is why the slightest tap and they're written off. Yeah, and yeah, they're quite advanced really. Well, not for these days, but yeah, they're a twin cam. They're not side valve as they originally were, or side cam. They're twin overhead camshafts. That's quite novel to me. I mean, yes, on a Cosworth Sierra or a BDA Escort or a BDG Escort, yeah, probably, but nothing else. And brake discs, ventilated discs. They're only single pot, but ventilated brake discs on a 1 litre car. Oh well, it has now then it's anti-lock brakes, and I had a 106 once, and I found with that if somebody braked heavily in a car with ABS in front of you, you were almost into the back of it, because the brakes were rubbish on most of the 106s. Apart from the GTI, yeah, really, I'd put everything on that car that was going to go. I really should have put GTI brakes on there. It would have caused problems with the insurance. You'd have to have an engineer's report and specialist insurance and all that, because you'd modified the car. And I had a test drive in this horrible 107. It must have been a prototype. It was a horrible colour, sort of somewhere between green bile and something I'd better not mention. But yeah, I was quite impressed. I thought, oh, I can afford one of them, straight off like that. And I went. Well, they said, "Are you interested in 107?" And I said, "Well, I might be." And I went and had a think about it. And I went back and said, "I said, can I have a 107?" They said, "Yeah, if you want one." They said, "What colour do you want?" I was about the red one. I said, "That's ideal," because the first ones, I think there was only really the red one that was a decent colour, the original ones, because there weren't many colours available. And I bought it right there and then, because I just liked it. I mean, electric windows, 5 gears, central locking, what else do they have? ABS, hazard lights, reversing lights, fog lights. I mean, you didn't get much of that on an Austin Mini. Well, you didn't even get 5 gears. Yeah, I mean, it might sound a bit simple, but if you've never driven a really old car, you don't really appreciate what you have on a modern car. And I mean, an electric bike isn't far off of an Austin Mini, really, not quite as fast, but probably accelerates faster, apart from a Cooper S or a... Yeah, but originally, when they came out in '59, Austin Minis, they were going to be 1 litre, but they were considered too fast for the general public at 0 to 16, 17 seconds, so they made them all 850s. Anyway, I've rabbited on a bit. What was I going to say? I've forgotten. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Something about... I've forgotten something about adult behaviour or behaving like an adult, being sensible. I've forgotten somebody done something really stupid and I thought, well, I wouldn't have done that. He and me, 107's off the road at the moment and I've given up with it. I mean, from where I can see, my dad gave me that car when I rebuilt the engine because he realised he was just too old to drive, that's why he'd blown it up. Yeah, he was 89 and he said, I realise now I am too old to drive and you can have it because you rebuilt the engine, you put a lot of money and time into it. Because it wasn't worth, I mean, I got a quote from Scrapyards, they were offering us 80 quid for a car that was worth about £1,400. Because it just he said the lights that were shown on the dashboard, oh, you can only give you 80 quid for that. I thought, come on, it's worth more than that. The rolling shell's worth more than that. So I thought I'd have a go at it, but at the time, a really old clapped out engine for it was 600 quid. So I bought all the parts that it broke, and it worked out very expensive in the end. It was about £2.5 grand, I think, at least. I just put it on my credit card because it was on benefits at the time. And I didn't know Dad had any money in the bank. He could have afforded to rebuild it himself. He said he couldn't afford a second-hand one. No, he couldn't afford a second-hand Lamborghini or Rolls Royce, but he could have afforded 2 or 3 new 107. But well, I mean, that's just Dad. Sensible. He was. Well, with the child that he had, there were times when he nearly starved. So you know, you've got to do things like that. And that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, it's off the road at the moment because Dad could never get. They have a push button central locking key, and Dad could never get it to work. And I found it one day on the garage floor when Dad was in hospital after I'd rebuilt the car. I thought, well, I'll have a go at that. It got a key for it, a central locking key, but they couldn't. The garage had forgotten to get him a push button one. They just got him a standard one. So I took the chip out of that and put it in the push button one, put a new battery in, but it wouldn't work. I don't know, somebody got a key to that car because there's somebody able to get into it no matter what I do, and they vandalised the new engine I've just put in. Internal components, hey, that's not funny. That's what I was saying, yeah, responsible behaviour. Pushing somebody that's at the point where they're working so hard that they almost die from heart failure or whatever. I'm getting very emaciated. I'm not far off death, you clowns. If that's responsible behaviour, well, I'm Adolf Hitler. Yeah, my nana hated Adolf Hitler because she killed her son. He killed her son in World War II. Yeah, that's not responsible behaviour. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've taken the speedo out to disable the central lock, and I was only going to take a fuse out, but I thought, no, I'm smart, Alex, they'll put one in. I took the battery off, I took the speedo out, and I took the rev counter out because it was in the way. And I may take the dash out because the voltages on the electrics, they're all over the place. You're supposed to have 12 volts at the fuel pump. There's 0.2. It's just gone daft, but it's getting stupid. I mean, they nicked a spacer that goes between the engine and the starter motor. But when Dad brought that car back, well, when it was delivered back with the engine blown, there wasn't a plastic spacer on it. I thought, well, it just must keep the water out the gearbox because there's an opening if you don't put it in. I thought that's all it does because I thought, well, will that stop it starting? But when if you don't put that spacer in, the starter motor pulls out of alignment because there's a gap literally halfway around the starter motor, and then it won't turn the engine. So I didn't know that, and I reassembled it all, put it all together, put it in the car, and it wouldn't turn. So I took it out, this new engine, put it in the boot, not realising that the tailgate seal was leaking, so that whole engine has been trashed. It's now all water damage. That is part of it. I don't know, you can see the rust on the camshafts, but the crankshaft was as good as new, and that's now rusty, so it's ruined. And I bought that as a reconditioned, and there is another crankshaft about somewhere. Whichever one it is, I bought it as reconditioned, and when I measured it up, it was a new one. I mean, for a 2006 car, well, it's about as rare as rocking horse manure. So that engine would be worth thousands of pounds, and it's all been trashed because idiots literally stole a plastic spacer out the car. Because I knew it wasn't there. I mean, there's stuff been stolen out of here and put back, like my wallet and my TV remote. They put them back in obvious places where I've looked millions of times. I know you've been in. Look, it's not funny. I don't appreciate it. You're making me awkward. I won't come out the house because I'm scared you nick something or break something or break my neck by accident. I mean, if you want to kill me, why don't you break in while I'm asleep and slash my throat? Can't you slash people's throats? Well, my uncles had to be able to, in World War II. And can't you pull the trigger? Well, that's what certain fans say, yeah, pull the trigger. Because the people who make these threats to try and frighten people and do their heads in can't actually shoot anybody. They're incapable of doing it. They don't have the killer instinct. Don't say I haven't, because my uncle died in World War II, so that you lot could be born. Because believe me, if Hitler had got here, he would have gassed everybody. There was no two ways about it. Don't look at it romantically. Hitler wasn't romantic. He was a nutter, like Saddam and Bin Laden. I mean, Bin Laden, he made, apparently, I'm told, he made all his money in America building roads. So why does he hate the Americans? Are they slave drivers or something? I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But then I've probably been told another lie. But yeah, I mean, responsible behaviour, like, well, and actually, since I've took all the Speedo and that out, somebody has nicked all the parts out the door that operate the locking system. The push button, the little lever that you stick your finger through the hole where the lock goes in and pull the lever and unlock it. They've taken all that. What, to make it more secure or just to make my life hell? And why are you doing it? Because I've done something wrong. It's all in your bloody head, you nutters.